You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Out from the hut of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. Bearing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so I rise, I rise, I rise. In the name of those whose shoulders I stand upon to step into my tomorrow. In the name of all that's good and righteous and perfect about our people. In the name of He who keeps you from falling. I greet you with my native tongue. How y'all doing this afternoon? It's truly an honor and no doubt a privilege to be back on the campus of Hampton University to address you, my fellow Hamptonians, one more time. As I stand here today and look out over an audience of unforgettable faces, I'm happy to be back at my home by the sea where I started 22 years ago. And it's great to see so many familiar faces. You know, Dr. Harvey, speaking of familiar faces, it's great to see such great friends like Dr. Barbara Inman, who's my classmate, and Dr. Sabin Duncan, and I saw Dr. Gerald Roy in the audience. Great familiar faces, and when I think about familiar faces, I'm reminded of a story I heard once of a young woman. We're just going to call her, for sake of this story, we'll call her Mrs. Jones, and it seems as though everywhere Mrs. Jones went, she took a pet parrot with her. If Mrs. Jones went to the laundromat, she took her pet parrot with her. If she went to the studio, she took her pet parrot with her. And if she went to do her grocery shopping, she took her pet parrot with her. And they tell me that one day, Sister Jones wanted to go out dancing, and she went out to the club. It was the 4040 Club in New York. And of course, being true to herself, she took her pet parrot with her. And as she was out on the dance floor, the DJ began to play a familiar refrain, and the audience began to sing out, "The roof! The roof! The roof is on fire! We don't need no water, just let the roof burn! Burn, roof, burn! Burn!" And of course, the parrot, being a parrot, began to sing out as well, "The roof! The roof! The roof is on fire! We don't need no water, just let the roof burn! Burn, roof, burn, burn!" And they danced the night away. But they tell me that early on Sunday morning, Mrs. Jones, being true to herself, she got up and she put on her white dress and her blue stockings and her red hat and her green purse, and she went out to the Hampton University chapel. And as she's sitting in chapel, right before the chaplain began to give her Sunday morning homily, and right after the university choir gave a rousing selection, the parrot began to sing out inexplicably, "The roof! The roof! The roof is on fire! We don't need no water!" And just as he got to the last part, she jumped up and said, "Oh no, you can't sing that today. No sir, we're in church." And the parrot, being confused, looked at Mrs. Jones and looked back at the congregation, and he looked at Mrs. Jones again and looked back at the congregation, and he looked at her and said, "Well, I don't know why not. The same folk in here were in the club last night." So it's good to see so many familiar faces. In all seriousness, friends, I promise to make to you this morning the same solemn commitment that Kim Kardashian made to her first few husbands, and that I promise I won't keep you long. Some of y'all will get that when you get home. This morning, this afternoon, in the few moments that I have with you, I would like to speak to you very briefly from the subject, Transcending All Dimensions. Transcending all dimensions. Why don't you look at the person next to you and say, this is the moment. If you're tweeting, you want to hashtag Transcending Dimensions, or you can at me at Elvin J. Dowling, Transcending All Dimensions. Famed essayist and psychologist Dr. Mandino once said that failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. As we assemble here today on this august occasion, I'm here to remind you that failure will not overtake you if your determination to succeed is strong enough. And I'm here to remind you that if you are to move into your new dimension and get out of your comfort zone, if you are to transcend all dimensions, there are three thoughts I'd like to leave with you to help you move through life and step into your greatness. Is that all right? Oh, come on, y'all, talk to me. Is that all right? All right. So the first thing I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is that I want to inform you that if you are going to transcend all dimensions, you must first start by changing your attitude. Why don't you look at the person next to you and say, change your attitude. Change your attitude. A noted clergyman, Dr. Charles R. Swindoll, once said that the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failure, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance or giftedness or skills. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day about the attitude we will bring forth to that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude.
This group is blowing up.
Great Olympic champion Scott Hamilton once said that the only disability in life is a bad attitude. By a show of hands, has anybody ever met somebody with a bad attitude? You know, my friends, as you matriculate through our home by the sea, I want to remind you and I want you to remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Some of y'all will get that when you get home. My friends, I want you to know that your attitude can be the difference between an A+ and an A. Come on. Your attitude can make or break your chances of getting a spot on the team or joining the line. Your attitude. Your attitude determines your altitude. When I was 18 years old, I was initiated into the Gamma Iota chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha right here on the campus of Hampton University. And one of the things I learned was that the test of a man is the fight that he makes, the grit he daily shows, the way he stands upon his feet and takes life's numerous bumps and blows. You see, a coward can smile when there's nothing to fear, nothing his progress bars, but it takes a man to stand and cheer when the other fellow stars. You see, it isn't the victory after all, but the fight that a fellow makes. A man, when driven against the wall, still stands erect and takes the blows of fate with his head held high, bleeding and bruised and pale as the man who will win and fate defied because he isn't afraid to fail. How is your attitude? Throughout my time here at Hampton University, I was a military science student in the Army ROTC program. And I hated every minute of it. We would have to get up every day at 5:30 in the morning and run around the campus singing PT, PT, I like it, I love it, I want more of it. Make it hurt, drill sergeant, make it hurt. And I hated it. 20 years ago, I was a student living off campus. No car, no job, just about nothing. And I would have to walk across the bridge on Settlers Landing every single morning at 5 a.m. to run around campus. And I had a bad attitude about it. My professor of military science at the time, Colonel Baylor, would tell me, he would say, Dowling, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Well, I minded, and it mattered. And it took me almost 20 years to change my aversion to running. I hated running, but I needed to run because time and the weight But you know, I'm reminded of a friend who said once, he's a rather portly fellow, he says, you know, I'm scared that I'm going to get diabetes because diabetes runs in my family. And I looked at him and looked at his family, and it dawned on me that the reason diabetes runs in your family is because nobody runs in your family. It's all about your attitude. The second point I want to leave you with, my friends, is that I want to underscore for you the fact that if you are going to get out of your comfort zone, it is important that you remember that circumstances don't matter. Look at the person next to you and say, circumstances don't matter. Circumstances don't matter. In my book, License to Live, a manual for getting past life's roadblocks, I talk about the fact that it doesn't matter where you start off in life, it's where you end up that counts. In 1856, Booker T. Washington was born a slave on the Burroughs Plantation in Halesford, Virginia. His life was valued at $400. At 16 years old, he walked 230 miles to Hampton Institute. He changed his life, and he changed yours too, and he did so because circumstances don't matter. In 2008, the son of a white woman from Kansas and a black man from Kenya became the 44th president of these United States because circumstances don't matter. I want to remind you and impart into your spirit today that it doesn't matter where you start off in life, circumstances don't matter. In 1974, I was born the second child of an unwed teenage mother. My father abandoned me as a child. But circumstances don't matter. I came to Hampton University, and when I left Hampton University, I had the opportunity to meet 4 presidents of the United States, be a guest at the White House on many occasions. I was chief of staff for the largest civil rights organization in America because circumstances don't matter. Doesn't matter where you start off in life. It matters where you end up. I don't tell you that to impress you. I'm telling you to impress upon you that circumstances don't matter. 20 years ago, I mentioned that I was jobless, I was homeless, Dr. Harvey, I've got to admit, 20 years ago, I was a homeless student here at Hampton University. And I had nice friends who would allow me to sleep on their dorm room floors because I couldn't afford tuition to go to class. I say that because today I've got 2 homes. 20 years ago, I didn't have a car to drive 3 miles from campus every single day to get to class, and I had to hoof it over Settlers Landing Bridge. Today, I got 2 cars that I own because circumstances don't matter. Doesn't matter where you start off in life, it's where you end up that counts. And finally, my friends, I want to remind you that as you strive to move outside of your comfort zone and transcend all dimensions, the third thing I want you to remember is that you must continue to fight for your dream. Look at the person next to you and say, fight for your dream. And part of fighting for your dream means to never give in, never give out, and never give up. I'm reminded of a famous architect, Vertner Woodson Tandy, who once said that we must fight for what we believe in until hell freezes over, and then we must fight on the ice. Never give in, never give out, never give up. Throughout the course of my lifetime, there have been instances where I wanted to give up. When I was 6 years old, my favorite aunt was murdered by her boyfriend as her 2 boys looked on. I wanted to give in. When I was 14 years old, my favorite cousin was kidnapped, stabbed 9 times, and dumped along the side of the road because of poor choices that he made. I wanted to give out. And then there was a time, the summer before I came to Hampton University, I was snorkeling with some friends in a boat off of Peanut Island in Florida, and I thought I was a good swimmer. And as I was finishing swimming, I decided I was going to head back for the boat. And I'm swimming, and I'm looking for the boat. And I'm swimming and looking for the boat. And the more I swam, the more I got tired. And I didn't realize that I was actually being floated out to sea in a rip current. First, I began to panic, and then I began to drown. And I went down and came back up. And I went down again and came back up. And when I went down the 3rd time, something in my voice said, keep swimming around. Keep swimming around. And so I decided that if I'm going to die today, I'm going to give it everything I got. And I kept swimming around. And there in the middle of the ocean was a boat that had been anchored, and I grabbed onto a rope. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to let you know that you're going to feel like giving up sometimes, but help is on the way if you just keep swimming around. You know, it reminds me of a story of a frog who had fallen into a deep cream bowl, and the story says that, you know, two frogs fell into a deep cream bowl, and one of which was an optimistic soul, but the other one had a gloomy view. I shall die, he declared, and well, so will you. So with the last despairing cry, he throws up his hands and says goodbye, but the other frog says with a merry little grin, he said, I can't get out, but I won't give in. You see, I'll just keep swimming around till my strength is spent, and having done all, I'll die content. And slowly he swam until it would seem that his efforts began to churn the cream. Then on top of the butter at last he stopped, and out of the bowl he happily hopped